You gotta go.
You gotta go. Babe! Babe! I'm immobile.
You gotta go out inside.
Honey, I'm not
please.
gonna ask you again. Go outside.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi. Could you start by introducing yourself?
Sure. My name is Kayla Moon. I'm a journalist. I've been doing journalism for about 4.5 years now. And yeah, that's what I do.
So you're what's called a citizen journalist. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Could you talk? What does that mean?
A citizen journalist or community journalist is someone who doesn't exactly have a formal education in journalism, but has the skill set and the knowledge to be able to cover different events, whether it's local, regional, national, or international news, and package it in a way that can be, received by the public. And it could be on multiple different platforms. So the platforms I do are with print. I have had articles printed in local newspapers, as well as different platforms online.
What are some of the pieces that you're most known for?
I actually received an award for best article in regards to Fresno PD. And that was a really interesting article where myself and co-author, unnamed co-author, helped me collect data, and we worked really hard on putting this piece together, and it was really well received. It's the most read article. I think it had something like 43,000 views on it, and it's still counting. So that was a very successful article. I've had other videos online do really, really well, somewhere in the range of 43,000 views as well. So just different pieces. I cover a lot of local stuff in regards to the police force, accountability, in regards to city council. Homeless issues is a big one that I cover a lot. I also write on foster youth and mental health issues. And then I interview people that I find interesting. So I was able to interview Micah White, who's the co-founder of Occupy Wall Street. We've been in collaboration since then, where I've sent him my work and, I get reviews on it. I also like to cover a lot of topics in regards to activism. I did a series on revolution, what that looks like, what it means. It was a 4-part series. So just a wide range of topics, and just in regards to what kind of catches my interest, and things that I think are important to highlight that may not get as much attention as it should. So.
Well, I mean, I don't want to do a highlight reel. I'm just trying to establish some of your background as a journalist. But didn't you break some sort of Facebook spying program by the police here in Fresno?
That was the Beware program, and I did not break that story, but I helped cover it, and I also got information from the police chief at the time, Jerry Dyer. He covered, I was able to get an interview with him where he gave some of the details. I interviewed many of the different activists who were watchdogs in regards to this program, which was a software that was spying on different activists, specifically targeting the Black community and the Black Lives Matter, protests that were happening. And so that was a really interesting piece, and that also did really well. It was published through Community Alliance, and then we also had a lot of content that was up online. So
wasn't that picked up by the local TV stations after you wrote about it?
I don't. I can't remember. I don't
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So you have been covering social justice issues, activism issues. Roughly, when did you get started?
It was about 4 years ago. I had just had my first child, and I was figuring out what I wanted to do with my career. And I took a class online that trained me. It was founded by Luke Rosowski, and it's Change Media, which was the university, which essentially teaches you how to do journalism in the way that this generation is able to utilize different resources in storytelling. So monopods, iPhone adapters, how to use minimal tools to get proper coverage of different stories.
And so, you isn't Lou Krakowski associated with a recognized activist movement?
Yeah, so he's the founder of We Are Change, and I see him as the Amy Goodman of my generation. The way that he networks and gets stories out there on different platforms, like Amy Goodman, she started off really, really small and is now nationwide in all of her different platforms, running and streaming at a constant basis. So Luke Rosowski, has done that, but through YouTube and through Facebook and through these new platforms, mostly on social media. And he's been very, very successful. He's traveled around the world, and he founded a school, and that school is where I learned my skills. And I actually was able to interview him when I was first starting out, and that was a really exciting moment for me to kind of meet my teacher and thank him for, the skills that he had passed to me.
Did you also interview Adam Kokesh, the Libertarian presidential candidate?
Yes, I did interview him.
You don't have to get into the gory details. I just establishing some of the background so when people watch this, they know.
Yes. So personally, not a fan of his platform. I actually, was able to talk to him as well as his girlfriend at the time, Macely Tomlin. They are no longer together. But she's done some great work in regards to activism and the liberal movement. Yeah.
So you've interviewed some heavy hitters, presidential candidates, We Are Change, the police chief of Fresno, about a highly controversial program, and you've also received accolades and awards for some of your reporting on justice issues. Is that fair?
Yes. And, something new that you may not know and that's in the works is one of the founders of Community Alliance has asked me to be a liaison between the newspaper here, it's a local newspaper, as well as a new and upcoming media organization. So I'm looking forward to that. That's in the works right now. So,
yeah. So I wanted to establish that while you're not a paid journalist on ABC TV, you are a professional who's been committed to this and has been recognized by people who are in that field.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's get right into the meat of it from there, now that we've established who you are. You covered the Yes California or CalExit movement in, I think, 2015 before it got really big. Is that fair?
Yes.
Tell us about your first interactions with Yes California, in your words.
So Marcus Ruse Evans reached out to me. He saw some of my work, I believe on YouTube, and he said, "Hey, we have a movement going on, and I'm wondering if you'd like to cover it." He was having a lot of difficulty getting any type of media organization to pay any bit of mind to the movement and the message. So I decided to sit down before I started covering, Yes California, and learn more about the founder, learn, about what the movement was actually representing. And it really sparked my interest. It was very intriguing. I had never heard of any type of independent movement of that nature. I was totally taken aback by the knowledge that, Marcus had in regards to the state of California, which I've been born and raised in, and I have my own interests in. I'm passionate about my home state, and it was just a lot of really interesting information that I had never heard before, and so I agreed to cover, some of their events And that's kind of how I got started in regards to, covering the Yes California content.
What was your initial impression of them? Be brutally honest.
Um, I, you know, there was so much information. At first, I found it very inspiring, but also overwhelming, because it was just all these new ideas. It was, just so much packaged into one. So I was kind of overwhelmed, but also intrigued. And then I actually I agreed to make a short documentary for the movement. And so I went out, we took a weekend, went out, and we're filming in Los Angeles. And for the website and how much content was getting out and how, professionally packaged it was, I was very surprised that there was like maybe 4 guys there, sitting behind a booth with a little, tent and or like a canopy with the logo, and it was just it felt very grassroots. It felt very just of the people, like they had this message, they were passionate, they wanted to get out there. They were, waving California flags on the street corner. There was, someone with a megaphone, and they were just trying to start a conversation, from what I observed. And it was very, it was great to see, I love the energy. And you could just tell it was like these guys that were just passionate, that had an idea, that were making it happen.
What was the reaction of some of the public at that event, if you can recall?
I feel some people got really heated, and they were, they totally disagreed with the idea. They hated it. They voiced their opinion on it. But that was a really like small majority of the majority of the people they spoke with were interested, were intrigued. They seemed excited. There was also a lot of political debates that came out of that, where people would actually sit down and have these conversations of what was going on, what they felt was wrong with the country, and how the government was treating the people, and all those different dynamics. So it was really interesting to be able to be a part of that.
Anything strike you unique, interesting, strange at that first outing that you saw with the CALEXIT movement?
In regards to some of the ideas that the movement was presenting.
Whatever. When you were, because everybody knows about CALEXIT now, and their identity of the movement goes back to 2016, December 2016, after Trump won the election. Almost nobody has an idea of what it looked like a year before that in 2015 and how the public was reacting.
I really felt what stood out was, it was just very genuine. Like, it was a group of people that were really passionate about their home and their state, and felt like they could deserve more, that they were worth more, that they had rights that were being infringed upon. So it was my opinion of just those initial conversations and moments was that it was just a group of genuine people really trying to passionately get out a message. And whether it was received or not, they were going to be on the street corner waving some flags and talking about it.
Did they seem well resourced at that point? Massive finances behind them. Be brutally honest.
No, it was definitely, you could tell that this group was essentially self-funding. It was money that was coming out of their wallets. So there was no political backing. There's no, financing coming in from anywhere other than themselves.
And you said there was just a couple people at that early stage.
I remember there being 4 people there.
Okay. And when the movement got, well known in 2016, you were not filming them at that time, but I imagine you were looking from the outside in. What were your impressions, coming from it at 2015, ragtag group of people, and then 2016, they're on every major network TV station. Thoughts?
I think it was really exciting to see, but it was also, you know, I feel like when certain things happen politically, there's this like knee jerk reaction, of just like we have to do something, we have to fix this. What are the different resources? What are different ideas? How can we go about this? So people were definitely awakened, and I feel ready to receive the idea in a different way. It felt like there was more urgency to the way that people were interacting and receiving the movement. And I actually went to Sacramento to do some coverage when Yes California went there. Um, and it was shortly after the election of Trump, I believe, like in that range of time. And it was no longer just like, oh yeah, that's an interesting idea. It was like, we need to make this happen. So the conversation, the dynamics of the conversation definitely did change after Trump was elected. And the coverage, they were no longer having issues finding people covering their story.
Was it still the same group of four people? And did they seem different?
No, the group expanded. There was many more people involved, and it seemed to spread to all different areas of California. So there's people from San Diego, there's people from LA, there's people from the Bay Area and in the Central Valley. So, it wasn't just in a specific region. There were people from all over California that were, accepting this idea at a different level than before.
And was the way that the idea was being presented about CalExit, was that different in 2015 from 2016? Did it seem like the group was changing their message, or?
I don't think there is ever a change. I think that there's a fundamental ideologies to what they're trying to present, what the Yes California CalExit movement is trying to present. I think that it became trendier. So there were new hashtags, right? So rather than Yes California, it turned into CalExit, which was a much more trendier hashtag, easier to share, easier to remember. So I think that the messaging, and how they were presenting themselves, it was being tailored to where it was more presentable, more digestible, because at the start, like I said, there was so much data, there's so much information that it was overwhelming, to try to digest what it was they were trying to present. So I think that in the growth of the movement, they were perfecting the message, and just simplifying it to where it was easier to digest for the public.
What about the audience reaction? You were there 2015, you saw them, and you saw the way the public reacted, and then you saw 2016 Trump's elected, the public's reacted. What was it, the tangible difference that you saw in how people were reacting to this message?
I feel like we can go into the whole Trump, what Trump has done to America as a whole, right?
We don't have to.
But I mean, I feel like people, like I said, there was a sense of urgency, like our country and our morals and our values are being teared away at a really fast pace, and so we need to do something now. Whereas in 2015, it was more of a like, oh, in the future, that would be interesting. Let's consider it, And after Trump, it was like, okay, it's getting serious. The stakes are higher. And it's, you could tell that people were interacting with the movement from that space.
Okay. Now let's get into the gory details, if you will. Um, Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about a Russia connection with CalExit. You were there early on. You know, a lot of the news suggests, but has not been able to prove, that the organization was exclusively started by Russia, well funded by Russia, and was staffed by professionally trained Russian spies. Did you see things that support that in 2015?
Absolutely not. Um, you know, from my understanding, there was a former president whose wife, I believe, was from Russia or living in Russia, one of the two. And I believe he was getting credentialed or to some extent in Russia. So there were, you know, personal ties to Russia, but it was never political. And that's just from my understanding of it. So, but in regards to funding and spies, and it was not that exciting.
Let's tell us a little bit about Louis Marinelli. You met him,
Yes.
man in question.
Mhm.
The news seems to portray him as a international intrigue man who seems to topple entire governments by himself. What was your impression of him?
Um, my impression of him was that can I be
Be
honest?
brutally honest,
Okay.
please, because everyone else will give misinformation. I would rather
Okay.
that they hear all the warts and all and ugliness from an honest source.
He's an intellectual. But lightweight and asshole. Okay. I don't know if I can cuss.
Bring it on.
Just like
Do it.
he has this energy about him that he knows more than you, I felt. And he likes to talk, right? So, classic politician, right? Okay. But, in regards to being a spy or anything of that nature, I did my research. I was never able to find anything, and I knew him personally, as well as the founder. And yeah, there was just I never found a connection personally. But in regards to his personality, it's not a person I would want to hang out with. Just.
Um, Other observations about the movement, things you maybe have thought of. You've been watching this for a couple of years. What are the if you were wanting to tell somebody about it, how would you break it down? What are some of the key observations you've evolved into in your mind?
I feel that, from where it started, a very humble beginning, right? And to see the journey of Yes California, and just its process of how it, summarizes information, how it gets information out there, how the movement is constantly tuned in to current events and what is going on in the environment, the political atmosphere, different issues that are coming up, in regards to immigration, in regards to the minimum wage here in California, and I mean, to so many different aspects of it, right? I think that it's really neat to see the progression and to see how they kind of evolve with the times and are able to stay very current, um, and really genuinely wanting the best for Californians, right? I think that has been really neat to see, and it's rare to see within a movement. Um, and I think it's done a great job of getting the message out there in a way that people can receive, and in a way that it makes sense and it may change their opinion in some way.
I'm going to ask you your opinion. You don't have to give it and just say I decline. But when you see newspaper articles over the last 6 months, Trump's war on California, California and Trump at war, California at war with the federal government, California resisting the federal government, and then recently, Donald Trump suggesting that there would be a civil war if he was removed. How realistic is the idea of CALEXIT?
I feel like it's gonna take a little bit more. Um, it's gonna take more than just happening overnight. In my personal opinion. So,
Be honest.
in regards to the public, I think that there are people that are totally for it, and there's people that could never imagine leaving America. I think that the politicians and the people in here that are in power and have that political sway, I also think that they're going to need some time to digest and understand what the movement is presenting and asking for. So, in my opinion, I feel as if, the news, they're always going to have titles that are catchy or create some type of emotional reaction. Um, in regards to Civil War, like, I don't know how close we are to that. Um, but, as for the movement as a whole, I think that it's going to take time for people to digest, and it will be interesting to see how it turns out.
Yeah, final question. You've traveled, you've talked to people. Um, is the average American culturally like the average Californian? Is there a big divide there, or are we all basically the same culture and people in Iowa and Kentucky think like we do here?
I think, philosophically and in regards to lifestyle and just the way that people conduct themselves, there is definitely a California culture that you could say. Um, I think that we're very diverse. I think that we accept our diversity and appreciate it. And, you know, in regards to differences, though, there are differences, absolutely. But I don't know how much in regards to California lifestyle, it's just more laid back, I could say. We're more liberal even in the Central Valley. Even though some people might not think so, there's a really a large liberal community here. So yeah, I think there are differences in regards to Californians and the rest of Americans, but how great, I couldn't say.
Last thoughts?
Last thoughts. Like I said, it's been interesting watching this movement progress, and one thing that I would like to encourage and say is, I would like to see the president of Yes California, Marcus Ruse Evans, uh, do some things politically, possibly try out for city council or something in regards to that nature here locally, and see how that might benefit the movement, and expand his, resume and experience. And that's something I would like to see someday. So,
What about the idea of governor? Some people have suggested that.
I mean, I think that would be really interesting as well. I think that he has the knowledge, the skill set. Um, I think it would be great to see.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cool. We're losing our lighting here.